Ever been in a conversation where everything was going fine and then, boom, silence? You start sipping your drink like it's a lifeline. The other person looks away. You both realize, yup, we ran out of things to say. It's like someone unplugged the conversation mid-sentence. And now you're trapped in this social void thinking, should I bring up the weather? Or the news? My deep love for raccoons wearing hats? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. But here's the good news. Keeping a conversation going isn't about being a master talker. It's about being a great connector. And it's easier than you think. How to keep a conversation going without trying. Welcome to the Confident Playbook. Let's get into the art of effortless conversations. The kind that don't just survive awkward silences, they skip past them entirely.
But the number one thing you must learn is listening is more important than talking. So that should take the stress off you. Go ahead and release the stress you have of being interesting and having great conversations that last forever. Go ahead and throw that out the window because they're supposed to end and it's simply just for you to communicate.
First things first, stop performing. This isn't an audition for most interesting person in the world. You're not trying to impress the entire Avengers cast or win a Grammy for best small talk. When you treat a conversation like a performance, two things happen. You stop being present. You start being calculated. You begin filtering every sentence. You edit mid-thought. You second-guess your tone, your pacing, your body language, and boom, you're out of flow. The worst part? You're no longer connecting. You're auditioning, and people can feel that. But here's the truth no one tells you. You don't have to be impressive. You just have to be human. Conversations aren't performances. They're games of catch. You toss an idea, they toss one back. If you drop it, no problem. Grab another ball and keep playing. Real connection doesn't happen when you speak perfectly. It happens when you're comfortable enough to be imperfect. And guess what? People don't remember your perfect phrasing. They remember how relaxed they felt around you. So, the next time you catch yourself overthinking, remind yourself, this isn't a performance. It's a conversation. You're not on stage, you're on the field, just playing the game.
Can I teach you the nonverbal sign for
Sure,
sparks?
sure.
So across cultures, across genders and races, there's one thing that everyone does when they are super engaged, and it's the eyebrow raise.
Oh.
So you just
yeah,
did it.
Just
So
did it.
anytime someone says something interesting, we go, oh.
You don't need to be interesting. You just need to be interested. Let that sink in. We've all felt the pressure. What if they get bored? What if I say the wrong thing? So we scramble for clever responses. Joke of the day. Weird Wikipedia trivia. That one podcast episode. But the truth is, nobody cares about your highlight reel if you're not paying attention to theirs. Curiosity is the fuel of great conversation. Not charisma, not confidence. Curiosity. Here's the cheat code. Stop worrying about what to say next. Start listening to what they just said. Let's say someone tells you, I just got back from Iceland, and you reply, cool. Conversation over, done, buried. But what if instead you said, wait, what made you pick Iceland? That's so random in the best way. Suddenly, you cracked open a door. When you dig into people's stories, they open up. Not because you asked the perfect question, but because you actually gave a damn. Curiosity is contagious. It tells people, I see you. I want to know more. I care about your experience, not just your answers. And when someone feels seen, they let their guard down. They relax. That's when the real version of them shows up. That's when conversations become connections. Here's the part no one tells you. You don't need to be the funniest, or the smartest, or the most accomplished person in the room. You just need to be curious enough to keep asking questions that make people feel like they matter. Because at the end of the day, people don't remember your perfectly crafted sentences. They remember how they felt when they talked to you. Curiosity is the shortcut to making people feel important. And people like people who make them feel important. So, next time you're stuck in a convo, don't look for the next topic. Zoom in on what they just said. Ask about it. Unpack it. Let them shine. That's how you become magnetic, without even trying.
When I meet with strangers, I find it really difficult to come up with questions to ask them. Well, that to me really is just a question of preparation. Instead of leaving it to chance and going, when I meet someone for the first time, I hope that in that moment I'm going to be able to come up with questions to ask them. Have a list of 5 questions that you keep in your back pocket. Be prepared.
If you keep getting one-word answers, it's probably not them. It's your question. Let's be honest. If your convo feels like pulling teeth, you might be asking questions that don't give people anywhere to go. Enter the biggest villain in small talk history. Closed questions. Yes or no traps that leave no room for depth. Examples. Do you like your job? Did you go to the event? Was it fun? These are like conversational dead ends. You give them a wall, they bounce off it with, yeah, nope, it was fine. And now you have to dig out of the silence. But here's the fix. Ask open-ended questions that invite someone to tell a story, not check a box. Instead of, did you like the concert? Ask, what was the vibe like? Or, what part of the show surprised you? It's not just about changing the words, it's about changing the invitation. When you ask open-ended questions, you're giving them a path, not a pit. You're saying, hey, I actually want to hear your take on this. Go ahead. And if you ever feel stuck, here's a magic phrase. What was that like? It works in any situation. Lost luggage? Oof, what was that like? First date? What was that like? New job, awkward moment, weird Uber ride? Same question, always hits. Because now you're not just asking about facts. You're asking about feelings, perspectives, stories. That's where connection lives. Humans aren't made to give bullet points. We're made to tell stories. So give people the space and they'll surprise you. Every great conversation starts with a better question, not a fancier one, a wider one. Ask something that lets them walk through the door and say, all right, let me tell you what really happened. And suddenly, you're not making small talk, you're making real talk.
The best conversations and the best conversationalists, they always set the intention for the conversation. And this helps ward against, those awkward lulls or pauses?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen when you set an intention.
Want a go-to strategy that keeps conversations flowing like a Netflix binge? Use forward, F, family, O, occupation, R, recreation, D, dreams. Let's say you're chatting with someone new. You can ask about the family, what they do for fun, or what they hope to do one day. That's 4 lanes of conversation right there. Example, they mentioned they're a graphic designer. You can go, what made you get into that? Oh, is that something you always wanted to do? D, what do you do to unwind after all that screen time? R, what does your family think of your designs? F, boom, 1 sentence, 4 threads.
You have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. Don't we always feel good when we talk about ourselves, when we get to talk about the things that we love? And it always feels good for people to be interested in the things we like.
Here's a mistake. Someone's excited about something and you switch the topic because you're not into it. That's like someone passing you the all chord and you turning off the music. Instead, match their energy, even if the topic isn't your favorite. They're hyped about hiking? You might say, I'm not much of a hiker, but clearly it lights you up. What do you love about it? You just turned it into a conversation about them, not just hiking. That's connection. Want to look like a conversation pro without even trying? Use what comedians, storytellers, and smooth talkers have been using for years. Callbacks. A callback is when you refer to something they said earlier in the conversation. Sometimes minutes ago, sometimes hours ago, and when you do, you're telling them, without saying it, hey, I was listening, you mattered. Let me show you how simple this is. Say earlier in the convo, they said, my cat acts like a dog, he even plays fetch. You both laugh and move on. Then later, you're talking about loyalty in friendships or relationships, and you casually drop, yeah, like your cat that thinks he's a golden retriever. Boom, connection. It's funny, personal, and meaningful because it proves one thing. You were really there. People are used to being tuned out, scrolled past, half listened to. So when someone actually remembers something small and brings it back later, that's rare and powerful. That's how inside jokes are born. That's how friendships start. You're creating shared history, even if it's only been 10 minutes. Callbacks are like emotional glue. They bond moments together, and they make the other person feel like the conversation wasn't just random. It was theirs. It was yours. It was something shared.
Okay, so this is really important to dissect here.
Yeah.
Because if someone asks you a question and you're not prepared, then what do you fall back on? Generally rambling. This is where frameworks are important. So when you've got a framework, you fall back on the framework instead.
Ever feel that weird tension when you want to switch topics, but your brain's screaming, abort mission? This is going to sound so random. Yeah, we've all been there. You're talking about their trip to Iceland, but suddenly your brain wants to tell them about your cousin who got lost on a kayak in Kansas. But how do you get there without sounding like you've got the social attention span of a goldfish? Use this magical phrase that reminds me of. That one line turns any topic transition from clunky to natural. It doesn't even need to make perfect sense. You're not in court, you're in a conversation. Let's say they say, I just saw Taylor Swift live. You, oh man, that reminds me. Have you ever been to a silent disco? Completely different topic. Still works because you gave it a bridge. Or they say, I hate flying. You hit them with, that reminds me of this wild road trip I took once. No planes, but chaos anyway. Now you're storytelling, not scrambling. Here's why it works. Humans are wired for associative thinking. One thing triggers a memory, and that memory connects to another. That reminds me of, is like conversational duct tape. It holds the flow together, even when the topics don't perfectly match. Without it, the convo feels like a car shifting gears with no clutch. Awkward, clunky. With it, smooth as silk. Now, here's the secret bonus. Using that reminds me of doesn't just change the topic, it adds personality. You're giving them a peek into your world. You're not just reacting, you're relating. And when you relate, even loosely, the conversation becomes a two-way street. Less Q&A, more RPG mode. You're building a shared experience. Start using it in casual convos, dates, work chats, anywhere. Once you realize how smooth it feels, you'll never want to switch topics without it again. So the next time you feel stuck, just say, that reminds me of, and let the flow do the rest.
And when it gets to the point where you're talking to somebody and you're talking too much for the both of y'all, and it's to the point like where it's just not going nowhere, just stop talking. It's like, man, I don't have anything to say anymore because there's nothing to say. There's nothing wrong with that.
Let's normalize something. Silence is not a failure, it's just a breath. Confident people aren't scared of pauses. They sip their drink, look around, smile. Insecure people panic and blurt out random facts about penguins. If there's a moment of silence, treat it like a comma, not a period. Sometimes people are just processing or thinking. Let the silence breathe. And when you're ready, pivot gently with, anyway, I was curious about, or you mentioned earlier. Tell me more about that. They want perfection. They want real. Think of these like your personal social snacks. Easy to pull out, always satisfying. To keep a conversation going without trying. Be curious. Ask open-ended questions. Use FORD. Match energy. Let silences breathe. Use callbacks. And for the love of all things social, stop overthinking it. The more pressure you put on conversations, the harder they become. But when you relax, stay present, and stay curious, that's when the magic happens. If this helped you, drop a comment. What's your favorite way to keep a convo going? Or your go-to story? Let's build a cheat sheet in the comments. And of course, subscribe for more social hacks, confidence tips, and the occasional reminder that awkward moments are just part of the fun. You're not here to survive conversations, you're here to own them. Let's go.